Make Rocket Ship Go Now. I am Robert Ogilvy, Executive EQ Coach, and you have stumbled upon the Leadership Lunchtime live stream. It's lunchtime somewhere. It's about mid-afternoon right now. I guess it's lunchtime in Texas, which is great. I'm just going to take a second to share this video in another couple places. But what are we going to be learning about today? How to boost engagement in your professional role, which is about blending your ideas and your ideals. Give me 1 second, and then we get to dive right into this. If I could just find a linky magoo to share. Is there? Can I share this link? What do I do here? What am I doing here? Just one moment, guys, while we get up and rocking and rolling. I think we're rolling. I wouldn't say we're rocking just yet. You know what? I can't seem to find the thing to share this, so I'm just going to say if some allies and friends of mine can help me share this, that would be fantastic. Okay, so let's dive right into it. What gets people motivated? Okay, so there's a bunch of short-term tactics, there's a bunch of long-term tactics, right? Short-term clear goals are good. Different types of leadership can exert more short-term influence. Some are more useful long-term. But the best stuff, the juiciest stuff, is stuff that's aligned to your ideals, to your purpose. Values are a part of this, but I prefer to use terms like purpose because it shows that there's an ongoing question, an ongoing meditation, an ongoing contemplation of how you're going to bring that out in the world. Whereas sometimes with values there can be too much incentive. I value this and I don't need to do anything about that, right? So it's not energizing you to act, to proactively do something, instrumentally do something in some way. Okay. So then how does that relate to our work? Okay. So one thing I would say is really the common cold of, I would say, professional work is that you can find people with good technical training, even good grit and good ability to jump in the moment and get things done, to bring forth all of their intelligence and grit and savviness to solve problems, right? But to some small or large degree, I encounter a lot of professionals, and these are people with years of education and often years of working experience, which are, to a small degree, you might say not satisfied. To a larger degree, you might say deeply unhappy or disengaged in their work. We know that, I'm trying to think of the particular stats on this. I think it's only a quarter of people, it might be more like 20%, are engaged in their work. I want to say it's 45-50% is the neutral, not quite unengaged, not quite engaged. And then I think it's 35 or 40% are disengaged, actively disengaged, right? So you can think of a slew of jobs and roles you've had or projects you've worked on, right? It might fit a similar distribution, and in that way, that means that one of the goals, hopefully over your lifetime, is to find more interesting, more engaging work, right? And really, in that sense, we're assuming this from the stance of there are technical skills that you can do, there are productive skills you can do, there are ways you can add productive value to things, and the X factor is how much this aligns with your ideals, right? But we could flip that equation, right? We could start in this place of ideals and then be kind of finding and designing work. The problem tends to be, and so if you think of people that are very, very self-directed or very artistic, very creative, it's that they have a hard time not just starting, but they haven't built up that corpus of experience yet to really be great at what they're doing. And so they might be engaged at whatever they choose to do or not to do, but because it doesn't have a lot of that active problem solving, digging in, cooperation, and sometimes they're not always leaning into that technical depth, that learning mastery. It means that, again, it's like their ideals kind of fall flat, and then it's just becoming kind of a high-minded way to say, do I want to pay attention to this or not, right? So this would be the other extreme of the spectrum. I think there's a segment of people, and what they need to probably hear is that actually experience, trying things, leaning into your sense of suffering and discomfort, even sometimes a bit more than you might think you need to, is part of. It's not just going to grow your skills, but it's going to grow your experience and your opportunities, right? And it's not just helping you move up the chain, but finding new options that are possible. In that way, there's a self-instrumental sense of kind of building your own solutions. But back to, I think, what is much more common is these capable professional people, which are really not that motivated and engaged. So the question is, how do we weave in the ideals? How do we weave in that motivation? Okay, so one obvious first step is to review what your ideals are, right? There's a few different ways to crack this nut, right? So you could just, as a broad qualitative contemplation, ask yourself, what do I care about? What am I concerned with? Um, you could doing your like looking at your character strengths, I think, is a great example because they're all kind of specific and crunchy, and so you'll see which ones are at the top. You'll see that that'll resonate with you more. Those are more motivating to you in whatever form they take. um, there's other ones you guys maybe heard me mention Schwartz values theory. So those are like 12 values around the circle, and so you can see which ones are more aligned or intention. That's interesting because you more and more see what mosaic, like where in the circle you're kind of tending to follow, and which are more intention, right? But I mean, the best way to do this is to put then serious effort into not just goals about things you want to achieve or accomplish, things that are rise and fall in time and space. I want a cool job like this, and I want to complete that kind of thing, and I want to complete that certification, and I want to do whatever. But bigger things which are perennially interesting to you, that those are the longer contemplations, right? And those end up feeling more like perennial questions you want to routinely lean into. Or the flip side of that, if you think you have some decent answers, this is part of why people have vision boards and things like that, is that for some snapshot, some point in time, you've looked at these and you want to review it, right? And it can be really refreshing and empowering if it feels like you're so in the moment, you so much can't see the forest for the trees, to then look at some past image, map, mosaic you've had of your ideals, of things that motivate you, or some future vision of what you're looking for. And you're like, oh yeah, that is me. Like, that's juicy stuff, right? And it could remind you in the moment of, like, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing this for, and this makes sense. Or just the opposite. It might be actually kind of deflating if you're doing something which is very grindy and unaligned, and then you see this great vision of all the kind of ways you do want to live and operate and be motivated in the world, and these are not the same thing. So let this be a gut check for you. And I particularly say this in this time of this COVID pandemic, where we're in this very awkward. I mean, society is basically recontemplating how it wants to reconstitute itself and work, and the new deals of kind of employment and economic balance, and virtual freedom, and the nature of learning and training and education. These are all getting rethought, right? So this is the perfect time for this. Here's one go-to strategy I would say. If you're in a particular professional job and you're not sure if it's your end game, I would say get your plan A, plan B. All right, so your plan A is your current work right now. And in that sense, the contemplation is, how can I job craft and make this more my thing? How can I get the project I want forward? How can I change what functions I'm using to get this done? How can I change kind of how I'm operating in this context to make it more of my jam, right? That can be fantastic, and honestly, seeing that can also help engage other people, right? So you will find yourself warming up new relationships and new team members in ways that you haven't seen before. When it's like, oh yeah, Bobby's really putting an effort here. This is great. I can see this, right? And the plan B is there's other ways I can use my skills, right? And start to think of another, and it could be another kind of backup job you're looking for, or that side project you've always wanted to start, or that book you're writing on the side that you want to launch, which is going to help you become, self-employed in some sense or another. Start considering that as well, and those are both legitimate options. I'm remembering one persona of some sales thing, and I want to say, there's 4 types of animals, and there's one they call a fox, right? And part of the gift of the fox is not just they can do good work, but they know they're going to be valued either here or elsewhere, right? So don't get caught in this dependent mentality that you must stay here to deliver value and there's no other way you could have value or kind of have a livelihood, right? And even just by knowing you have choices, you have options, you're honoring your sense of freedom and autonomy, one of our 5 basic needs for freedom. That itself is a really good means. It about 5 times amps up your chance of being able to kind of grit through the stressful moment. But in a practical sense too, yeah, there is an option. There is a likelihood that you may at some point jump into that other option. There's no one quick and easy way to get this done. The main point of all this is that you want to find ways to use all your gifts and expertise and technical skill to achieve goals with the things that actually motivate you. And this is actually one of the best long-term gifts that you can give yourself. So I hope you give it to yourself. I'm Robert Ogilvie, Executive EQ Coach. I hope to talk to you all again soon.